On now. Okay.
Well,
Here we are. We're on peer pressure. Okay. I'm going to skip the story. Just I'll leave that to you to read on your own. But according to Rabbi Flug, he got together. He found out this out. He said a survey on peer pressure by the Surveillance Public Data Data Bank revealed that over 82% of those responded were influenced by peer pressure as adolescents. More than 56% of them felt that peer pressure worked both ways. It sometimes affected them positively and sometimes negatively, depending on the situation. A number of studies have shown that people will think or behave differently in order to gain or maintain acceptance among a group of peers. Pressure to conform differs among age groups and is most prominent among early and middle adolescents. Our ability to influence others and to be influenced by them can present certain challenges and opportunities that we should keep in mind. So here we go. 3 cases. Ready? Ari and Ben have been best friends since they were 2 years old. Now that they are older, Ari often feels pressured to engage in mischievous activities when he is with Ben. While Ari wants to keep his best friend, he also wants to stay out of trouble. So what should he do? Give in to peer pressure.
Yeah, invite his friend over for pizza and whatever, and sit there and say, we've been best friends for a long time, but lately I've been feeling a little, that you want me to do things that I don't particularly feel are right. If they've been good friends that long, they could have a nice conversation, non-threatening, non-accusatory. Okay. That would be the first tack I would take.
Okay.
And I've had that very conversation with a friend. I said, we're like brothers, but at this point, your life has taken a different direction, and I can't afford to be found near you when you finally take a fall.
So what you say is talk it up.
Yeah.
Fine. Karen has only been driving for a year, and while she may legally offer rides to her friends, she doesn't like to drive them out of fear that they will pressure her to drive more aggressively than what she is comfortable with. One day, as she is driving to an event, she sees friends who are going to the same event waiting for the city bus. Should she offer them a ride?
Sure, and then politely tell them if they start pressuring her to do things. I'm the driver. This is the vehicle that I'm using. If you'd like to continue riding in it, or I'll put you out at the next bus stop.
That sounds like an older, more centered, more I'm in tune with myself kind of
Correct.
statement. I don't think a girl like this would be able to do that. I would say, honk and wave as you go by.
Honk and wave as you go by.
And be prepared for fallout.
Okay. Fine. Oh, you don't have to honk.
Yeah.
I would, but that's me.
Just to with the honking, just to bring something up. It says that Yaakov, when Yaakov was going to a home to see his father Isaac, so what happened? He sent the messengers to Esav, and the rabbis say that was his mistake.
Really?
Yes, you shouldn't send a messenger he should not have sent a messenger to his brother, because that's like passing a sleeping guard dog and waking it up. You're going to be bitten. Okay? So my response to you is I wouldn't beep.
Okay. We'll take the beep out of the format.
Last case. The Friedmans have been living in a community for a number of years and are very happy with their community and their circle of friends. They were recently offered an opportunity to move to a different community and to take a leadership role there. Moving to this community also provides financial benefits, as it is much more affordable. New York to South Bend. Okay. While they are excited about the opportunity and the growth that may come from such an opportunity, they consider themselves blessed that their children chose to befriend positive influences in their current community, and there is no guarantee that this may happen again. How should they weigh each of the factors?
Depends on how old the children are. If they're very young, I would say, even though it would be difficult to pass leadership role and the more affordability, I would stay there for the children because they've got positive.
How young?
I would say if they're like, anywhere 5, 6, 7. When you're very
Not teenage?
I don't know whether you didn't say.
I'm saying, but you wouldn't think teenagers would need more.
Yeah, through that age bracket, I wouldn't move. If my kids were like 5, 6, 7, had already established
Right.
good friendships with positive role models,
Right.
we'd stay there till the children were ready to move on and had their values really.
At what age would the child be ready to move on?
Well, it depends a lot on the child and the family.
Give me a
I would say by 13.
13? 13?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I would humbly disagree with that. That's when you're getting all the pressure.
But if you've got a really good base and the children have been together a long time, that would be better than if you uprooted them, took them to another community where they might not have found the positive role models, then these problems start even earlier.
Okay. Okay.
On the other hand, if they're taking a
Yang.
if they're taking a leadership role, chances are they're going to be able to possibly help guide some of the relationships that their kids fall into. And if they've raised the kids well,
Right.
Which goes back to how old are they at the beginning of this?
but even so, if they're already nearing 10 or so and they've been raised well, they should possibly have some sense of discrimination, about the influences.
So you're both saying, but you're so 10, 13, you're both saying that you couldn't leave already.
Because
You're saying
I would
you will leave by 13 now.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you're saying 10, you're saying 13. We're arguing a couple of years. Okay.
and looking back at the influences, my kids were moved at a young age to this community. And they found both good and bad influences in this community. And we're talking about this immediate neighborhood.
Correct.
So there were some very positive influences. There were some pretty negative influences. And there's no guarantee.
Okay. So let's see what happens. Let's see what the Jewish response would be to all these questions. One, you have the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that says, Yeshua ben Parachia says, establish a teacher. Okay, you have to find a teacher for yourself. You should acquire, and listen to the words, by the way. Establish, or aseh lecha rav, means make for yourself a rav. You have to find someone who's going to be your leader, who's going to be your guide. Then knei lecha chaver, and buy yourself or acquire for yourself a friend. And finally, judge every person favorably to the side of merit. Nitaya Arabeli states, distance yourself from a bad neighbor, and don't befriend the wicked, and don't despair from suffering. Okay? Why do you have to say the last part, by the way? Because sometimes you see the wicked prospering, and so you say, what's the use of all this? Why should I keep the Torah? Why should I do anything? Don't despair from your suffering, and when you see the other guys winning, as it were, because the world works on, or at least God works on the wheel. So sometimes you're going to be good, sometimes bad, depending on the wheel of fortune, as it were. Okay, and so you're saying don't despair from that. It happens. God knows what He's doing. You have to just trust God. That's why He says don't despair from suffering. The important thing I have to look here is acquire a friend. Okay, now the one thing that nobody ever picks on, I don't know why, but the word chaver in Mishnaic Hebrew was very specific. The chaver was a person who would take upon themselves extra stringencies and would do that in order to distance themselves away from certain behaviors. So you had the Am Haaretz, the regular person on the street, okay, or as Rush Limbaugh likes to call them, the low information voters, okay, which is not even his term, it's really from the mainstream media, but he uses that a lot. You have the Am Haaretz, and then you have the Chaver, and that would be the two levels.
There's that big of a jump between one group and another.
Yes.
There's no middle ground between the village idiot?
Oh,
the guy who knows
no, it
what's
wasn't
going
the
on?
village idiot. It wasn't. It was people who didn't have the time, that weren't willing to put in the effort, as it were. The people, the low income, the low information voters aren't idiots. They just choose not to get involved in those sort of politics. They rather watch and find out what's happening with Lady Gaga.
And you say that's not an idiot?
It goes back to that aphorism, friends help you move, real friends help you move bodies.
Okay.
I find it interesting because most of my Hebrew, as I learned it, was more modern spoken Hebrew as opposed to biblical.
Correct.
And koneh I know as buy, purchase as opposed to acquire.
Correct. Yep.
And chaver,
Friend.
these days.
So I want to explain this all, but in Chaver, like I said, Mishnaic Hebrew, Chaver is a specific group. Now what happened? For all intents and purposes, they would be what we have today as the Glat Kosher crowd. The Glat Kosher, Chol Yisrael, Pas Yisrael, all the Israels, okay, all the Chumrot, all the stringencies that you could find, put them all together, Chadash, put them all together, and make that a group. It's expensive to be a Chaver. Understand what I'm saying? It's expensive. Buy your way into being a Chaver. Acquire that. Why? Because it's worthwhile. Because you're elevating your service. Now, nobody says that. Nobody picks on that. I don't know why. But that really, if you go to other parts of the Mishnah, when they're using Chaver, that's the connotation. Here, the Pirkei Avot seems to take it as acquire yourself a friend. In other words, even if I have to shower this person with gifts, if he's a positive influence, then you have to do that. So you have to buy a cup of coffee for this guy. Okay, so yes, is buy, is purchase. You're buying the love of this guy. Or if you're a woman, this woman. Okay? So, and all because you want to be influenced positively. Okay? That's what we're looking at. So now, the Rambam, and that's really what we're focusing on, that whole Mishnah. Everything else, by the way, establish yourself for a teacher is very important too. It means, when it says establish a teacher, that means that you should find somebody that you feel comfortable with that will be able to adjudicate Jewish matters for you. It does not mean that you should learn solely from one rabbi your whole life. It says a person who learns from one rabbi solely from one rabbi the whole life is a failure, basically. He's a cursed guy, because he's only getting one perspective. So when you want to get the perspective of Judaism, then you have to go to the yeshiva world or a wide range of rabbis, Isha Torah, online. It's a whole bunch of things that we could get to that would help a person to develop the hashkafa, an outlook that you can feel comfortable with, or maybe not, or maybe be challenged. Let's say you don't feel comfortable, somebody doesn't feel comfortable watching this. The question is why? You have to challenge yourself. That, or you hear a different perspective, whatever the case is. But when it comes to Jewish law, you have to pick one guy. That's what they're saying. But you have to be careful with that too, because you better pick somebody you're comfortable with that understands you. Otherwise, you're going to be in bad shape.
My first teacher
Right.
was a machine gunner in Chaver.
Okay.
And one of my next rabbis was a gentleman who had fought in the Haganah.
Mm-hmm.
Early influence.
There you go. And with all that, you're supposed to judge people favorably, okay?
So, I judge them quite favorably.
Now, based on the Mishnah, the Rambam, I noticed in the Mishnah Torah, discusses the influence that one's friends and community can have on a person. He says, and this comes from the Laws of Knowledge, chapter 6. It says, a person's thoughts and actions are naturally influenced by friends, and they will adopt the ways of their neighbors. So right away, we're being told that we have to be very careful where we move, okay? Or who we associate with. They should therefore consistently befriend the righteous and live among the wise to learn from their ways. They should distance themselves from the wicked who walk in darkness and avoid learning from their ways. And again, I always have to say this: whenever we're talking about wicked, we're not talking about a Hitler. We're talking about a person who doesn't follow Torah. Period. End. Okay. Well, I'm not going to be PC here. if that's how the Torah is always looking at this. Someone who's wicked or an enemy of the Jews means it's a Jew who is not following Torah. Period. Okay? That's how the Gemara always means it. Similarly, if one is in a place whose way of life is deplorable and whose people do not act righteously, one should go to a place where people are righteous and whose deeds are commendable. In other words, you are, who said it? What's her name? Clinton said it. A village, it takes a village. Okay? So, yeah, you guys are like according to these guys.
Boy, you're going to lose the crowd here, Rabbi.
Yeah. But this is what he's saying too. They got it from him. All these, the Democrats got it from Rambam. Okay?
I'm sure they pour over the Gemara.
They do. And he says, if all the known lands, this was an interesting thing, what he's supposed to say. If all of the known lands have a deplorable way of life, like in our time, okay? He's talking in 11...
Poor man, if he came back today...
Right, 1135 to 1204. Okay?
Gosh.
Or one cannot go to a place whose way of life is commendable because of danger or illness. One should separate oneself from society. As it states in Eicha, he sits alone and remains silent. Okay?
Thus,
So,
getting rid of television.
No, that's nothing.
You're going to fight that to the
please.
death.
It's not television alone. He's
No,
saying
right,
get
not
out of
alone.
society.
There you go.
He's totally out of society.
Absolutely.
He's off. What do you call it? Off the
grid.
Off the grid. He's off the grid. He said, if you're in a place that absolutely is not deplorable, like in our time, then you get off the grid. You just get out of there. Okay. He's not giving the. He's not giving the, what do you call it? He's giving an extreme here. It's an extreme that he's presenting.
I think it's eminently sensible myself.
No, because the Torah, the problem with what he's saying is the Torah is supposed to be lived amongst people. And I have to if you have to rest with Kamocha, I have to love my neighbor like myself. If I'm off the grid and there's nobody around,
your Jewish neighbors, not your
doesn't matter. No, but even them, if there's nobody around me, I'm not doing that. I have to do charity. I have to do all these things. I have to. It says we learned. Where did we learn this? Yes, I just taught this in one of my classes. I forget what it was, but it's that we have to say hello to everybody, even an non-Jew, even an idol worship. Excuse me.
So saying hello.
No, but you're supposed to do that sort of thing. The point is that we're supposed to be in the world. Why? Because we're all a goyim. We have to be a light to the nations. We have to. What's the light to the nations, by the way? Showing them that it's possible to live a Torah life. That's all it is.
Yeah, but you don't have to assimilate into.
I'm not talking about assimilating, but
I'm not
if you're
not assimilation like you're talking about assimilation. I'm saying just being part of that culture. You don't have to be part of that culture to be in there and showing them Torah life.
No, but he's suggesting you go away from everything. That's what I'm saying. That's extreme. The Rambam. Right?
That's what I said.
No, okay. But it's not a good one. Because you have the question. No, because it's true. It's not good. He says why? He says why? Why does the Rambam only present? This is a question you could ask. Why does the Rambam only present two extremes? Namely, most people, when you're just working with either the righteous or the wicked, you can't have. There's people in the middle. Okay. Most people in societies are neither absolutely righteous nor absolutely evil. Would he recommend interacting with someone who is generally a good person and with some negative traits or vice versa? You have to ask that question. Like I said, he gave two extremes here. Either I'm perfectly righteous and you're going to come to my community, we're going to grow, very nice, or I'm in a place of deplorable situation, which I should just separate myself from. By the way, why did he say that? So you should learn from them, right?
Yeah.
That's all he's saying. So you shouldn't, let's understand what he's doing. He's saying I shouldn't learn, either I will learn from, I'm going to be influenced by my community, period. So now I have to find a community that is a good community for me. That's one that's following Torah, that's living a life of Torah, that's not speaking Lashon Hara, all these things. All these things are included. So now, if I can't find that, I should rather separate myself from these communities and live a life of solitude and study my books, rather than to be with them. That's too extreme. That's very tremendous extremes we're looking at. Either I'm a great place or not. Show me any community where it's going to be like that. That no one person is going to do something wrong. It's an impossibility. That's his point. That's the questioner's point. Rabbi Flug's point is, what happened to the middle road? What are you going to do with that? Okay? And why is the option of isolating oneself only suggested in extenuating circumstances? It would seem to be the ultimate fail-proof way to protect yourself. Is there anything wrong with choosing such a lifestyle? You want to go off the grid. What would be the problem with that, by the way? So I once talked to my Rebbe about this. So what would be the problem with totally going off the grid and not seeing anybody?
That doesn't necessarily mean you don't.
I'm saying I'm using the Rambam. I'm using your language, but I point to the Rambam.
You don't grow because you're not being challenged.
You don't grow because you're not being challenged, right? And worse than that, you'll destroy the world.
That much power.
Yes, that much power. If I would be learning Torah the whole time, so it says about Rav Yochanan ben Rav Shimon the Rashbi, Shimon ben Yochai. Okay, what would he do? He had it somewhere in the cave for 12 years, and when they walked out, they saw somebody doing something wrong. They were burning everything all over the place. Because I didn't let you out to destroy my world. Okay, so if I would just be enclosed in the Dalit Amor of the walls of the study hall, as it were, I would end up destroying the Torah that I'm trying to bring into the world.
Well, Moshe Rabbeinu was all absorbed in the Torah.
Yeah, but he also dealt with the community.
I don't think that it's the community you have to worry about. I think it's the place where you live, the whole community.
No, he's talking about clearly, the Rambam is talking about a Jewish community. He's not talking about a non-Jewish, he's not talking about the secular world here. He's talking about the Jewish communities are living in a place where it's deplorable because they have horrible ethics. The Jewish community has a horrible ethic.
Well, if they do, then you should.
So I should go out, right?
I think so.
He's not talking about the non-Jewish community. Absolutely not. Okay, so now he's shedding more light. I should say absolutely not. I don't think he is. I'll be more humble with that one. So I'm not sure what he's absolutely speaking about, but it seems that he is talking about the Jewish community only, as comparing one to the other. Okay, then in the commentary in the Mishnah, where we were, on that very Mishnah, he says, the rabbi said, acquire a friend, using the language of purchase, like you were pointing out, and not find yourself a friend or befriend someone or something similar to that. This is to emphasize that one should actively obtain a friend who will be a positive influence in all areas. As the ethicists say, don't choose friends based on your character traits, but rather on their character traits. And when every friend relies on this approach, everyone will strive to complement the other's wishes. Okay? So it's another one you agree with. Wow. Rambam's 2 for 2 with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about that?
There we go.
Okay, where's the Mashiach? Time for it.
There you go. Okay. So it's also a way to choose your spouse. When people go out,
Too late.
when people go out and they normally, as Rabbi Rhodes used to say, yes, that we are looking for, and everybody agrees, but we look for a carbon copy of ourselves. And
opposites attract.
we still look for a carbon copy of ourselves. We're looking for somebody who's like us, because they're used to us. Problem is we can't live with ourselves, so we can't live with that person. And we end up finding, I always tell people, when you want to go on a date, I want you to make a list, an extensive list of what you're looking for. Check it twice. Make sure you know everything. Then, burn it, because you're going to get the exact opposite. Okay? You're not going to get what you want, because that's not good for you. You need the exact opposite. You need an Ezer Kenegdo. You need somebody who will complement your what you have. In other words, I have my deficiencies. My spouse, hopefully, doesn't have those deficiencies, and we have to fill that in and keep me on the straight and narrow. Now, I her. Okay, that makes a good marriage. When you don't have that, when everybody's equal, as it were, in other words, I have the same deficiencies as you, so then the marriage is doomed. It's not going to work.
Boring.
Well, it's doomed, though. It's absolutely doomed. Okay? So that's what he's saying when don't choose your friends based upon your character traits, but rather on theirs. Okay?
Is that 3?
No, that was just 2.
Oh.
I was just repeating it, right?
Oh, boy.
Okay? Now, here's one more. This is not from Rambam. This is a position of Rambam. This is by Matidyahu Yitzhari. He says when the Mishnah said distance yourself from a bad neighbor, that means to say that even if your neighbor already lives near you and you can't move away, you should try to distance yourself as much as possible, since that person is a bad person. In other words, again, not acting according to Torah, and they are not interested in repentance or ethical teachings. There's no way to positively influence that person, and don't become close to a bad person who is not your neighbor, even if they are not extremely bad. One should not befriend them because you cannot constantly be with them, and it is unlikely that you can positively influence them, and they might negatively influence you. Now, this is amazing, by the way, when you think about it. It says, Rav Matidyahu ben Yitzhari wants to, he wants to argue like everybody. He's not saying anything new. That I shouldn't befriend a wicked person or a bad person, even though they're not quote unquote wicked, because they have some redeeming characteristics. But I shouldn't befriend them because I can't constantly be with them. If I could constantly be with them, there's a chance, a very good possibility that I could sway them to the other side. This is a classical Ben Oni, the guy in the middle, who's not he's not a mumalatev, he's not a mumahachis, he's not an apostate to show God and spit in God's face. It's mumalatev, what we call an apostate by taste, which means if I have kosher in front of me and I have non-kosher in front of me, I'm always going to go to the kosher. That's a mumalatev. I'm never going to go to the treif. If I don't have kosher, I'm going to go treif. And so that sort of a guy or person, we can possibly influence that person if I'm with them constantly, and they may go on the straight and narrow. Possible. On the other hand, if I'm not with them constantly, then I have no chance, according to him. And worse, they can influence me. And you read that, and you have to ask yourself, why would the negative, we should both be strong. Why is the negative so powerful?
Because it encourages you to be self-directed, and everybody's ego gets in there.
Okay.
I want to do what I want to do.
Keep thinking about that joke about the wise rabbi of some town that used to confuse the evil urge by constantly giving in. Or giving in without a fight. That was.
So you want to say, which I'm not disagreeing with you, you're probably right with this, is that the negative influence, because it's an ego trip.
Well, it encourages you to indulge your own desires, which is very powerful, rather than walking the straight and narrow.
Okay. So, but I want to think about what he's saying. Just if your contact with it every once in a while can affect you, can affect the good. The problem that a person should be having with the statement, I think, when I first had a problem with it, was the same way we say the other guy won't change. Okay, if I'm not constantly with them, to argue that my training has been that shallow that I'm going to give in to my Yetzer Hara at the first chance of getting it.
Maybe it won't be the first chance.
Second, third, fourth. In other words, I'll have in other words, they're worried about me giving to my Yetzer Hara from a chance meeting or being once in a while with this guy because of your thing. I understand what you want to say. Because that influence.
It'd be more of a disaster for you to give in to the negative than him to work up to the positive. So if there's a choice one way or the other, it's more important for you not to fall than for him to succeed.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that you have to ask yourself, where's your training? And let's put this into non-religious terms. If I'm going to a simcha, okay, I am at the smorgasbord. So I'm a trainer. In other words, I know I'm a guy who's working out, who does all these things. I'm in good shape. Okay? So it's a fantasy right now. But I'm in good shape. So then you have this other guy who's not in great shape. Okay? But he comes to my gym. So we're with each other, fine, we're friendly. The guy, he's at the smoker's board, the odds are he's going to eat. And so the question is, am I going to give in to my desires to eat all the wonderful food there, or am I going to say, as my father would say, may he rest in peace, that he said, when you're eating, you should eat just until you feel satisfied, not full.
Right.
He always told me, not full, don't feel full.
Right.
If you feel full, it's too late.
Yeah.
But if you feel, eat till you're just not hungry anymore.
Yeah.
And then he said, you'll never have to worry about your weight. Never. I wish I would listen to him. But it doesn't work that way. But he was right. When I did listen to him for that period of my life, so I did lose weight. It was very easy to lose weight because your body is getting exactly what it needs. The body knows what it needs. That's it. And I wouldn't eat anymore. So you're going to, and now, again, if I spent my whole life doing that, as my father did, okay, he never gained weight. He would go to a simcha, didn't care, restaurants, whatever he was going to do. He would only eat a certain amount, and that would be the end of it.
Yeah,
and then it would stop.
Most people are in a happy frame of mind at a simcha, and they say, "Oh, it's a special occasion." So if there's somebody there that's there can give you that one nudge, that's it.
Can you just leave it on the table?
Huh?
Just leave it on the table. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. But I'm saying, if a person like my father,
Yeah, but
who he wasn't going to give in to that. No, but that's my point. If I'm trained that way.
Okay, if you're trained that way,
So
you won't give in. But there are a lot of people that aren't.
That's what I'm saying.
He's addressing the majority of people.
So you have to say that. You want to say the majority of people are weak that way.
Majority of people I've met are.
Okay. I said that's not, but it's something that we have to look into. If a person is trained religiously, in other words, here I am going through day schools, I'm going through the yeshiva, I'm going through all this, and suddenly I see a person out there who's not religious, but he's not opposed.
I don't think it happens immediately. It's over time.
No, even over time. Who's going to have more of an influence? So he wants to argue. I can't argue against him. Like I said, it sounds sad to me that the quote-unquote good guy is going to give in to the lust and desires that the bad guy is giving over. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying it's sad to realize, to know what to think about, that our training is not as strong as, again, my father's training would have been kept him at his weight till the day of his death. Great shape.
Yeah, but for some people, that's not a temptation.
Right. Okay.
Well, for him, maybe it wasn't as much as a struggle as for some other people.
I can't answer that.
For no particular reason, I happen to think about the banquet that the Hebrew Union Seminary held.
In the first one, with the trade dinner?
18, whatever.
Right.
That Wolochinsky felt compelled to remark upon was remarkably trade, was how he described it.
Right.
That it was ostentatiously trade.
No, but they were doing it. They were mumlahis. They were doing it on purpose.
Right.
It wasn't a matter of and those two categories.
That was the point he made. Was they went out of their way.
Yeah, and that's why the conservative broke off from them. That would be the break off was a conservative movement. But that's a history class.
Okay.
Class. No, I'm just saying that was covered on my on the history things. But it's a fascinating thing that when you have that much of although you could say that they were taking Rambam's the Rambam's following Rambam's advice, that when you're with a bunch of Rishaim, wicked people, and that would have been the classical case of Rishaim, they're doing it on purpose and to flout it, what they're doing. So they break off, you go away from it. And they did. They broke off and they're conservative. Okay? So now let's go back to it. In case number 1, Ari is confronted with the challenge of remaining friendly with Ben without being negatively influenced. Okay? That's what he wants. While the previous sources seem to indicate the concerns of being friendly with people who are negative, the Mishnah also says, Hillel says, be one of the students of Aaron, love peace, pursue peace, love humanity, and bring them closer to the Torah. So, wait to hear this one. Rabbeinu Yonah, that's right. We learn Rabbeinu Yonah every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. At the Torah Center, be part of the live audience. Okay. Rabbeinu Yonah comments, love people and bring them closer to the Torah. He's looking at that, and he says, when Aaron would sense that a person was violating a transgression privately, mind you, okay? It's not an open transgression. Aaron would befriend that person. The person would then think, if Aaron would only know what is in my heart, would he want me to be his friend? Rather, he assumes that I am a good person, performs good deeds, and if he knew about my bad thoughts, he would distance himself from me because he wouldn't want to be friendly with an evil person like me. That person would then regret their errant ways and repent. Okay, now, again, there's a key point here. He's doing it privately. This is not somebody who's doing it publicly. Ben, in the case of Ari and Ben, they're not being, one part of being mischievous is not getting caught.
Yes.
Okay? Otherwise, you're just being blatantly a wicked person. But if you're being mischievous, it means that you don't want to get caught. So this is a private situation. So now, Ari seems to have a way. I'm not saying you guys are wrong, by the way. You had a good approach. Let's talk it over. Let's have a cup of coffee, a cup of hot chocolate, whatever we're talking about, and let's talk about what's going on. I don't feel comfortable doing this, and so on and so forth. But if he's going, but he also wants to influence his best friend Ben, and to try to keep him as that. Now, he may not want to go to that speech. He may not feel comfortable with that speech. I think you said about the girl. That's a very grown-up approach. When you're kids, you don't necessarily think like that. Unless you talk to your parents, then your parents give you that advice. But it's if you're not, so he has to just think to himself, is it worthwhile being like Aharon? Because this guy is doing it privately. He's doing it in Shah still. So I can still influence him positively. It's true I could be drawn along, like everybody's been arguing. But at the same time, I can have a good influence on him. So what should I do? And that's really the question that he has to go against. Now, if he's going to go for how many people said no versus how many people said yes, at least on this piece of paper, it would be a slam dunk because it was 3-1. Okay, but in general, that's the problem with ethical situations. We have to know exactly what's going on. Okay, and it's a case by case situation. So it seems that he would have some room to move here, according to Rabbeinu Yonah, and to say, no, I can still be friendly with him. And hopefully, when Ben realizes Ari is a good guy, wants to remain friends with him, even though there's some mischievous stuff going on there, which Ari does not have to take part in. Okay? Nobody's forcing you to do it. So Ben may say, if I want to keep Ari as my friend since he's been since 2 years old, so maybe I should stop what I'm doing. That could be the other side of that. Okay, so it's a question of who's going to influence the other more. But clearly, if Ari was out there doing, driving his car right past the cops at 90 miles an hour, not the guy you want to be with. We're saying stay away from that. Get away from the bad neighbors. Okay. Case 2. In case 2, Karen established for herself a personal safeguard to prevent being pressured into driving unsafely. However, that safeguard now conflicts with another value, being kind to her friends. In other words, she's passing her friends. Should she beep like you wanted to? Should she not beep? Should she stop and give them a musser? What should you do? Okay. I'm not going to drive. If you want me to drive faster, that was yours. If I'm driving faster, then I'll let you off the next bus stop. Okay. So Rav Chaim Lazuto cautions that sometimes setting up personal safeguards can be detrimental. He says, one must understand that one cannot judge an act of piety or personal safeguard by its initial appearance. Rather, one must investigate and contemplate all possible outcomes of the act. Sometimes an act appears positive and has a negative outcome. And in that situation, one must refrain from it. And if one performs the act, if one performs the act, is considered a sinner, not a pious person. So again, according to this, if she stops.
Yeah, but they had an alternative form of transportation. They were waiting at the bus stop. It's not like she left them standing there in the middle of nowhere and they had to walk to this event. So if she feels that these are the kind of people that might put pressure on her, they have an alternative transportation. She's not leaving them in the church. I don't think that's a bad thing. Personally.
Again, that's something.
Forget the beep. I'll forget the beep. But I still
The
think
beep? Oh, okay.
I still think that she should not pick them up if
Okay.
she feels that strongly about not being pressured.
Okay.
I would argue in favor of picking them up, but, just letting it be known that
But
you have to listen to the driver. No pressure. If you start pressuring, you walk.
Right.
And there's polite ways to say that.
Right.
If somebody says, "Why are you driving so slowly?" You say, "Because I feel safer this way."
Mm-hmm. Okay. Like I said, you can go either way on this though, because, like I said, the act appears positive to pick her up, but it could have a very negative outcome. It could drive a bigger wedge between these friends.
That too.
If I'm going to pick you up, I'm going on my way to pick you up, and then you tell me how to drive. You make me miserable. When I told you already, I don't have to go fast. I shouldn't have to repeat this anymore, so leave me alone. And so, I'd rather just drive by you and forget it, and not pick you up. I could pick you up, but it goes either way. It could easily be either way. So case number 3 involves finding a place to live. Now you're going to appreciate this. Okay?
Uh-oh.
Rav Yossi ben Kisma said, this is a famous thing from Pirkei Avot, chapter 6. I was once traveling on the road and an individual approached me. He said, "Rabbi, would you like to live in our community? And I'll give you 1,000,000 gold dinars, precious stones and pearls." I told him, my son, if you would offer me all the silver, gold, precious stones, and pearls in the world, I will only live in a place of Torah. In other words, keep your place to yourself. I have no interest in being the Rav of your place. I'm going to stay with a bunch of Talmidei Chachamim, and that's the end of it. Okay? And then, it goes to the Nechilta says that the verse states Moshe sent his father-in-law away, okay, to his home. So Moshe said, "You have given us good and sound advice to which God agreed, so please don't leave us." Yitro responded, "A candle only benefits a dark place. What good is it where the sun and the moon shine? You are like the sun, and Aaron, your brother, is like the moon. What is a candle going to contribute to your company? Rather, I will return to my land, and I will convert the people of my land, introduce them to Torah study, and bring them close to God." So you have 2 approaches. One is the approach that says, come to South Bend. You're in New York, you're in Flatbush, Lakewood, Eretz Yisrael. Okay, surrounded by Torah. Okay, I said Borough Park, Williamsburg. Okay, any one of those places. Okay, that you know that there's Torah in those places. Okay, and somebody says, come out to Bangor, Maine, come out to South Bend. South Bend, Baruch Hashem, actually, we do have a pretty good Torah community here. But go to these places, and the person is saying to them, not for all the money in the world. Okay, that's number one. That's the first approach. Then you have this other guy, Yitro, who is being asked by the Gadol Hador, his son-in-law, but also the giant of the generation. Stay with us. You gave advice. Hashem agreed to you. Stay. He says, no. I want to be a big fish in a small pond. I want to go home. And I'll convert my family. I'll convert everybody. I'll bring them back. Blah, blah, blah. Okay? It's the exact opposite approach. Okay? So, what should this family do? They have the Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma approach of, we have a good community, we're not going to endanger our children. By the way, he asked a great question here. He said, if you apply what the money is, 1,000,000 small gold coins are worth more than $1 billion. So he asked, Rabbi Flug asked, why didn't you just say, I'll bring my own group in? Yeah. What's the big deal? It's not like you're giving me so much money, so I'll bring in a kollel. I'll bring a nice kollel, we'll have a good time with it. That's all these small communities. All these small communities, they like to bring kollel in. Why? Because it gives to the community. It makes a makom Torah. People are learning all day. You're going to, and you can go and learn with them. That's what they're supposed to be, outreach kollel, not inreach, but outreach. And so if they do that, then everybody's coming in and they're learning it because, to make a tremendous impact on the community. On the other hand, if they just stayed with themselves, I guess there was something, but for community-wide, it's worthless. So that's one of the problems. That's the two approaches to Kollel. But if you're bringing those places in, and you're bringing that sort of influence, then wow, you can build a community. Why should you do that? That's an interesting question on Rav Yossi ben Kisma. And he's saying, with all that, I won't give it up. Even though I can bring in my community, I'm not leaving what I have. Okay? So this case number 3, what's the names? The Friedmans have a real problem. On one hand, they can go to the small community and they can be community leaders, and they can develop a community. But the problem is their children who have developed good friends and they're positive influences, they may not have it in the next place they go. There's no guarantee. That's not a guarantee. So now they have to say, am I going to be a Yitro and walk away from it and try to get people and develop them so they can mesh into the real community, to the greater community? Or should I be like Rav Yossi ben Kisma that says, no, I won't leave. You're shaking your head, but it's not such an easy choice.
If you have children, it is an easy choice.
No.
They're
Think about every rabbi out there, including myself. Think about every rabbi out there who goes into
Why did
communities.
you leave Bangor, Maine? Because there was nothing there for the kids.
There's also no money there.
You've told me a million times that there
no,
was
but there was nothing there. But why would I go there the first time? I went there. I spent 7 years there and enjoyed it all 7 years.
Yeah, but you weren't married when you first.
Of course, I was married. No, I was married all the way through.
Oh,
Bangor, I was married. Moncton, New Brunswick, I was married. Okay, but Bangor, Maine, I was married, and I went there with full knowledge that there was nothing. Hopefully, I was thinking maybe I can build something up. No question, but it didn't work out. Okay. There wasn't that much of the structure, and the children weren't there for that. But who knows? Maybe the next rabbi, if he's okay, he'll be able to build something up. I don't know. But there's already these small communities. But that's when any rabbi goes into these small communities, same thing. They have to deal with the same problem. Am I willing to sacrifice my children? That's why we call it Mesiras Nefesh. We're giving up our souls, and we're something nefasho, or possibly destroying our children. Okay? Yet we're going. Every Lubavitcher out there is doing this. When they go to places, they always say, the old joke was, wherever there's a Coke machine, there's a Lubavitch. Okay? And God bless the Lubavitchers, because they would go out. They went to Stoughton, Massachusetts, where there's nothing. It's a wasteland. I come from Stoughton. There's a wasteland. The rabbi, besides me, and the rabbi, and maybe now there's a few more people, he was originally only Shomer Shabbos. Okay? Even the conservative rabbi, when he came in, he was the only conservative, he was the only Shomer Shabbos. In those days, conservative. Well, actually, today he didn't even drive. He was totally Shomer Shabbos. Wow. Because he came from an Orthodox background. So he was totally Shomer Shabbos, from what I understood. But he was the only one out of the whole community. Okay, so that's really putting your kids into a horrible situation. You go to Bangor, man, you have to homeschool. Okay? Or you go to us, you have to homeschool. So you're willing to homeschool, and every Lubavitcher, for the most part, has to homeschool his children. So they have computers now, it's tremendous. But it's still, you're putting your kids into a horrible situation. You're an adult, you can do anything. But the children, so I'm saying, for all these people, all the outreach professionals, all the rabbis who go out there, they have to deal with this question. That I always forget their name. Friedman. Then they deal with the Friedman's question. What do I do? I have to answer the question all of us have to answer for ourselves. But like I said, it's all those things that go together. You have different approaches. It's not a black and white answer. It's very gray. And he ends off with saying, we are often provided with opportunities to positively influence family members, community, the Jewish people, and the entire world. When we take advantage of these opportunities, we might find that they have equally a positive influence on us. So the bottom line is that we have to figure out what we're going to do, what we're willing to put up with, and what ultimately would be better for our growth. And there have been rabbis who go into these communities. I know, besides me, but I know other people who do this. And I say it openly, I've become stronger as a result of having to constantly review the arguments. And then some of my other people, my hashkafa is much stronger than a lot of people who are in the big cities, because they don't have to deal with this.
Yeah, but children don't have
The children also. By the way, because we, again, South Bend, I give South Bend credit, because South Bend has a day school, and it has the regular influence, we have such a strong community, so Baruch Hashem, they're taken care of. Okay, when it comes, but like I said, when it comes to another community where we wouldn't have such a strong infrastructure, it would be hard. That's why people, like Lubavitchers mostly, or anybody in those places, they will have to send their children by age 13 away. You go to high school, away. You go by your grandma's, whatever. But you're going away, and you're not staying here. And in Bangor, Maine, they used to send their kids to Providence, Rhode Island. That was the closest yeshiva away. So that would have been 4 hours. 4 hours driving this. So they wouldn't drive every day, but they would have to board there, and that's what actually ended up. Many of those kids turned out very frum and are all over the United States and Israel. So you can trip over Bangorians, as we would say. Okay.